The Bad Movie Bible, the ultimate modern guide to movies that are so bad they're good. Edited and written by Rob Hill. I fell in love with this book immediately upon opening it when I saw it in the store. It had a brilliant chart using science, colors, and Batman to demonstrate how an awful movie can be more enjoyable than the average movie. Since it's supposed to be in color, let's change that. There we go. As you can see here, the good Batman movies include The Dark Knight and Batman 1989, and then the middling Batman movies include Batman the Movie 1966 and Batman Forever. The darkest red square is reserved for Batman vs. Superman, and Batman and Robin is so bad it's good that it becomes good Batman again. This chart spoke to me in ways no book has ever done before. And as the old saying goes, your franchise either dies a hero or lives long enough to become a villain. The book includes a reader's manual which rates all of these movies on 5 different categories, including cheese, acting, excess, sheer ineptitude, and a what factor. These 5 categories are recorded as such. The movie is then given a score out of 10 based on the amusement provided. So let's dig in and see what today's passage of the Bad Movie Bible has in store.
Released in 1987, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace was directed by Stephen J. Fury and written by Lawrence Coner and Mark Rosenthal. The late great Christopher Reeve returns once again as the Man of Steel, and he actually doesn't just star in the film this time around, he contributed to the story as well. But getting Christopher Reeve back was not the easiest thing in the world to do. In fact, the rights to the Superman franchise were sold by the Salkinds to Canon Pictures. Canon Pictures, where have I heard that before?
Ninja 3, the domination.
Oh yes, lovely. Yes, as I said, it was sold to Canon Pictures for a whopping $5 million. Golan and Globus, the heads of Canon Pictures, swayed Christopher Reeve to come back by giving him $6 million to finance his pet project that would become Street Smart, which is the first film that gave a big role to the great Morgan Freeman, resulting in his first Oscar nomination. As I mentioned, Christopher Reeve had story control over this film and also final choice over the director as well. Christopher Reeve pitched a story that was in protest to the nuclear arms race that was going on at the time, and of course, still goes on today constantly. Hashtag Oppenheimer. Originally, Christopher Reeve actually wanted to direct the film as well, but eventually he was deemed a little too inexperienced. Other directors they were hoping to get is a very interesting list. Originally, of course, they tried to get the original Superman director Richard Donner back. That was not going to happen. They tried to get Wes Craven to come onto the project, which would have been very weird. Interesting. Christopher Reeve even recommended Ron Howard for the project, but ultimately Sidney J. Fury was hired. Probably because he was a lot cheaper to pay for at the time. Speaking of cheaper, just before production started, Canon Pictures slashed the film's budget in half from a reasonable $36 million to a teeny tiny $17 million budget. And yes, of course, this was the mid to late 80s when this was getting made, so you could make a good movie for $17 million back then, no problem. But just keep this in mind, the original Superman film that came out in 1978 had a budget of $50 million, which at that time was ridiculous. So a $50 million Superman movie being as great as it was, being compared to a $17 million Superman movie that was trying to be just as epic, was just not going to happen. Part of the reason this budget slash happened was because Canon Pictures financed their productions by pre-selling off the home video rights to their other films before they were even made. But once they started getting into the $5+ million budget films, the pre-sales were no longer helpful, because if they make a movie for, $300,000 and pre-sell the video rights for $5 million, happy days for everybody. But if a movie costs $17 million and the best you can sell your pre-rights for is $5, that ain't gonna math out very well. And to boot, the production company hadn't made like a bona fide hit movie in like 6 years. So, put those things together and shitstorm. That's all you get. And a shitstorm is what they got. So just before they produced the movie, not only did they have to slash the budget, but they were going through a major financial crisis to the point where they had to cut 45 minutes out of this film. 45 minutes after poor test screenings so on and so forth. 45 minutes. That's half of the length of the final film. The film is 90 minutes long. They cut out half of its final runtime from this film. That's absurd. When it was finally released, inevitably, it was panned by critics and fans alike, with many reviewers saying it had terrible visual effects, plot holes and inconsistencies, things of that nature. There's a lot of things you could see people complaining about in this film. But this film still holds a special place in my heart, like all the Superman films, because I grew up on them. I used to rent the VHS from the library as a child. This is actually the Betamax tape, but it looked just like this, but slightly larger, and it's just fun to show off Betamax tapes. Every time I would go. No wonder I'm a huge disappointment. I loved it. It was a Superman movie. What's not to like? And at least they only had to suffer through 90 minutes of it. This time around, I got to watch it on this absolutely stunning, both the Steelbook itself and the release 4K from Warner Brothers. I'm not going to say I bought this Steelbook set just so I could have Superman 4 on 4K, but it's at least 25% of the reason. So there is that going for it. But damn, that thing's pretty. I mean, if you haven't, everyone out there watching this probably already owns this, but if you don't, I did an unboxing video of this whole set, and it is just chef's kiss. And as a lifelong fan, I have no idea what those fans initially were complaining about. I love seeing the same shot of Christopher Reeve and Mark Pillow, who plays Nuclear Man, being poorly keyed into the shot with stock footage behind them over and over again. Same shot over and over again with a different background. It's pleasing to me as a viewer to see that kind of thing. The blue outlines give the film character, is what I say. And plot holes? What does that mean? Just because you cut 45 minutes out of a film does not make it seem like there's scenes missing. To me, it makes sense that a single strand of Superman's hair can hold 1,000 pounds of weight, but then easily be snipped by a basic set of bolt cutters by Lex Luthor and his nephew, John Cryer. It makes sense that Lex Luthor can take that one strand of hair and turn it into some sort of primordial science ooze that he then convinces evil Porkins from Star Wars and Academy Award winner Jim Broadbent to attach to one of their nuclear missiles that he buys from them on the black market, of course, because Superman has, at this point, removed all nuclear warheads from the Earth and shot them into the sun, because that wouldn't end badly. He takes this primordial ooze and shoots it into the sun as well, and then it somehow gives birth to this godlike nuclear man character with cat fingernails and gorgeous long hair. General Zod and his buddies from Superman 2 are comparable, but they are no nuclear man. That is for true. It makes sense that Mark Pillow's voice is the same as Gene Hackman, because the guy who plays him isn't really an actor, but he's actually a former Chippendales dancer they found that they just like the look of. And it makes sense that although he is literally born from the sun, and no matter where you are, some sunlight will be reaching you, even in the vast of space, he loses all of his powers when Gene Hackman, closes the blinds on him a little. It makes sense that Nuclear Man can fly in the vast darkness of space and be totally fine and not lose his powers, while carrying Clark Kent's new girlfriend, wearing nothing but a woman's power business pantsuit, breathing nothing in space. She's fine, don't worry, she's okay. Flying in space with nothing on besides, she's okay, don't worry about her. She's fine. But then Superman, he takes what I assume is the moon and pushes it in front of the sun, causing an eclipse, which then turns off Nuclear Man's powers. She begins to fall as if gravity is taking hold of her in space in a pantsuit. She's fine. Don't worry about her. Somehow, him not flying actively makes her plummet toward the Earth in space? It makes sense. But enough about its absolutely flawless storyline. What does the Bad Movie Bible have to say about this film? From the cheapest opening titles ever, applied to an alleged blockbuster, to the final shot in which Superman grins at the goddamn camera, everything about this film is a disaster. In the shot's defense of him grinning at the camera, that's the same shot they use in every single Superman film, and it's a gorgeous shot. And because of the quality of this film, it is literally the only shot in the movie where the blue screen effects are convincing. With riveting dialogue from Superman like this: "Stop! Don't do it! The people!" And this: "I just wish you all could see the Earth the way that I see it. Because when you really look at it, it's just one world." Yes, it is. What score does Superman 4: The Quest for Peace get in the Bad Movie Bible? With a score in 10 in cheese, 7 in acting, 4 in excess, 7 in ineptitude, and a 6 in the what factor, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace gets a Bad Movie Bible rating of 9 out of 10. While I do agree, of course, that this is a terrible, terrible movie, I love it. It only kills 90 minutes of your day, and you're laughing at most of it throughout. If you are a diehard Superman fan like I am, Christopher Reeve Superman specifically, I grew up with his stuff. Even in this terrible film, he still brings the Christopher Reeve heart. His performance is still as good as it can be in a bad movie. And I just love him to death. And Gene Hackman coming back as Lex Luthor is a treat, regardless of the terrible, terrible quality of the film. Margot Kidder is in it, I guess. Like, between the first one and this one, she aged about 45 years, I assume, because she literally didn't stop smoking within those 9 years of the movies being filmed. And John Cryer as Lex Luthor's nephew. Absolutely useless to the film entirely. But I guess someone had to replace Ned Beatty. And, you know, the kids like that John Cryer. He's in those teeny bopper films of the day. So why not? I love this movie. It is a great bad movie. It is one of the better bad movies. Like, some movies are just like horrible to watch. You can't even sit through it bad. This movie is at least like a tolerably fun bad. Even if you're not a fan, you can make it through this film and laugh at all its inadequacies. The terrible visual effects just make me laugh. The ugly, ugly opening credits compared to how gorgeous the original credits were in the first couple films. The music is fine, because at least it's copying and pasting the great John Williams music, essentially. And the plot is coherent enough that you can get through the movie. But the terrible dialogue, the Gene Hackman voiceover of Nuclear Man is just wonderful. Destroy Superman. I love it. And Clark Kent and Superman trying to do a double date with himself is kind of a funny idea that they don't really like do justice to, honestly. Like, they start it and then it kind of like they drift farther apart as the scene progresses, where it would have been more fun if that scene was like all in one apartment and he had to try to do it convincingly. Like, that's a good shtick that they could have done a little better, but at least the idea was there. The ideas were there, and then they slash half the budget. So that's the real folly of Superman 4. And because of that, sadly, we never got the Golden and Globus Canon Films Spider-Man that was going to be at one time, starring the young Michael Dudikoff as Peter Parker. Thank you for watching yet another Bad Movie Bible episode. I've been meaning to do more of these, and I've been excited to do Superman 4 ever since I pre-ordered that box set of steelbooks. Fate wanted me to watch it this time, because if you watch that little short I did, I flipped the book open and that was the first thing I opened it to. That was not a joke. I actually did that. I was just going to flip it until I opened it to a movie that I owned. First try, Superman 4. It was great. Perhaps I'll do Batman and Robin in the future, just because they kind of go together well, and I love me some Batman and Robin, so that'll be fun to rewatch for the 1000th time, just like Superman 4. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Talk, shop, pop, movies.